Well, hello, everybody, and hello, Trina. Thank you,
Hello.
everybody, for joining us this fine afternoon, and thank you, Trina, for being with me here. Um, Quickly, a couple of items as we get started here. First of all, my name is Earl Foote. I am founder, CEO of Nexus IT. We are an outsourced white glove IT support, cybersecurity, and cloud firm based here in Northern Utah, serving Northern Utah and a nationwide footprint. I'm joined today by my great friend, Trina Limpert, and I'll come back and introduce Trina here in just a moment. Let's see. We would welcome any questions, comments that you have throughout the hour here today. Whatever platform you're joining us on, throw those questions or comments into the feed on those platforms. Trina and I will try to keep track of those, and we'll get to those as it makes sense throughout the hour. If there's time at the end, we will come back around to as many questions as we can get to. And those questions can be related to today's topic, or they can simply just be related to anything that you want to bounce ideas around about leadership, entrepreneurship, business, whatever it may be. And then let's see, just a quick reminder that on this Tech Beat segment in the coming months, we've got Dan Beck, CEO and founder of 401 Go, coming on. We've got Christy Holt, founder and CEO of Vibonics, coming on, among some other guests that will be joining us over the next few months. So keep an eye out for those. So to the guest and the topic at hand. Trina, my esteemed guest today, Trina Limpert, is CEO and founder of RiseNext Corporation, an education and operations consulting company assisting organizations to successfully execute justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion initiatives. Trina is a passionate leader, and her company offers a unique blend of experience in driving engagement and operational execution to meet diversity and inclusion objectives. Her prior corporate technology career spans across multiple industries and businesses at Novell, eBay, and Oracle as Senior Director of CX Consulting. In her prior role as President of Women in IT at eBay, she led an organization of 1,500 members across 17 countries. In 2020, Trina co-founded TechMoms.org, an organization that educates and assists women re-entering or transitioning their careers into the technology industry. So welcome, Trina.
Hello.
I'm so happy and so glad to have you here today. I have really enjoyed, and you and I realize, our relationship, our friendship is fairly, fresh, but I've really enjoyed getting to know you. You're always a breath of fresh air. You always have a very positive outlook and energy about you. You've always got some good jokes, and you're a lot of fun. So this is going to be a fun hour. Trina, you are kind of an OG. Like you were like maybe one of the first 3 women in technology ever, which
I was looking for him. That's why I do what I do now. I couldn't find him when I started.
Right. So, and I realize that's a massive over-exaggeration, but the reality is, 25 years ago, when you started, in the technology industry, and you wrote this thesis about women getting into technology in 1997, right? It was nowhere near as prevalent as it is now. It's still not as prevalent as it needs to be, or should be, right?
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your journey, Trina, starting in technology 25 years ago and, seeing the evolution, but just tell us a little bit about your life, your background, and your entrepreneurial story, if you would, please.
Yeah, well, I get asked a lot, like, how did I get into tech? Like, where did this start? And, I thought back and kind of the story goes, it happened when I wrecked my light blue Chevy Malibu into a parked car. I ended up in a situation where I was riding my little brother's bike to a fast food restaurant called Vittles. And I'm sliding around on these greasy floors going, I can't do this. Like, this cannot be my life. What am I doing? And so I saved my Vittles dollars up and made my way into, I actually started out in architectural engineering. I wanted to be an architect. So I always loved engineering. I always loved designing, and was really, really something I was attracted to. And when I started school there, I actually took a Pascal programming class, for those of you that recall some old school computer science.
Don't date yourself there.
Yeah, I know. I actually worked on the dot matrix type stuff. Anyway, mainframes and whatnot. So I found my way into school. I got a job working graveyards at Hill Air Force Base. So I moved up to Hill, did my computer science degree, starting back clear 96 timeframe. And I just loved the space. But as you mentioned, I looked around the room and went, where are all the women? Why am I the only one in this classroom? And it's kind of funny now, because just this last month, I recognized our technical trainer we hired from Weber State. She's a professor at Weber in computer science. She was actually in my graduating class, but we weren't ever in the same classes. I'm like, why didn't they put us together? So I would have known, but we kind of made that connection all these years later, which was kind of fun.
That's so interesting. Yeah.
That's how I made my way in, and then just continued my education, and just have loved the tech industry. I love designing systems. I love getting in and problem solving. And it's just such a creative world that I just feel like more people need to get access to.
Yeah. Super, super cool. Well, we're so glad that you're here in the tech industry, that you're an advocate for diversity, for inclusion, for women in tech. Tell us a little bit about this passion project of yours, about techmoms.org. What's that all about? I think our viewers would be really interested in that.
Yeah, I love talking tech moms. It's such a fulfilling thing. Throughout my whole career, I've always worked, as you mentioned, whether it was in employee resource groups or overseeing initiatives. I did diversity strategy for a while at eBay across multiple communities, which was really intriguing to get not just the women's focus, but helping other communities and raising up their execution and planning. And part of those programs that I've done throughout the years are things like creating employee coding camps for employees' daughters, which is a great way to drive diversity thought and leadership without saying you got to sit through another unconscious bias training. You got to, feel like you're being attacked as the white male again, right? Like, we're trying to create change in a different way. That's a lot of the work I do at Rise Next, is coding camps or creating different avenues and experiences for people to really create awareness. And so I'd done a lot of this work throughout the years, and people had become familiar with some of the work I was doing, and I was connected to Mikkel Blake, and I work with her and Robin Scribner on Tech Moms. She had actually gone through a program called Mother Coders out of Silicon Valley and was very passionate about bringing it to Utah. We got connected, and she and I and Robin over this last year and a half have just had this amazing opportunity to really bring this to Utah. And we knew there was an undercurrent of need, but we just had no idea. Just this underutilized resource we have in our mothers that are wanting to get into industry, but haven't been able to figure out how. And I saw this was, as a tech leader, I always was struggling with this myself. Like, I get how hard it is. You're under the gun. You've got to hire. You've got projects. You got things coming up. It's really hard in the moment to say, okay, now I got to think about diversity, and they're really hard to find. And how do I do this, right? And so I was struggling in finding diversity, and I kind of got tired of hearing well, they just don't exist, and so they'd give up. And I'm like, well, fine, I'll just go freaking create them, right? Like, I'm tired of that message. Let's go freaking do it. Let's go change the world. Yeah. So I was fortunate to get connected there and find out about some of these programs and how we could structure them. And I sit on a couple of boards at the university level. So at Weber State and at UVU. So I had some connections there on how can we build partnerships for helping women bridge in and then also continue their education into the tech industry. And it's been a model that's just been really incredible, and allowed us to scale. So we work with Weber State, with Utah Valley University. We've now been doing Tech Moms Latinas, which is really amazing. We had one of our graduates from last fall say, I want to run a Latinas group. So we said, okay, let's do it. And ran a pilot with Slick this last spring. They're graduating in June. And then we also ran an online. And so just from last fall till June, we'll put over 80 women through the program, which is fabulous. We're loving the work we're doing there.
That's amazing. And yeah, I know you've told me you have over double that are waiting in queue to try to get into the program right now.
I have almost 150 coming in. And I right now we're trying to scale, and I haven't been actively advertising, and we're still getting 2 to 3 applicants coming through from, prior SEO or marketing that we've done before. Just, we know that there's a need and a huge demand for women just looking to find their way in. One of my students was like, we're just trying to get a little help here, right? Like, just give us a little bit of support. And they just kill it. Like, once you just kind of unwrap all the boxes and let them fly, right? It's pretty amazing what they're able to do. And even in
some wings
at a time, we're seeing huge success in these women and what they're able to do.
Yeah, it's super cool, and I'm really impressed, with the program and what you're doing, Trina. I've had the privilege of joining your classes, virtually a couple of times, and I was very pleased and somewhat taken back at just within your Tech Moms group, the diversity there, the amount of ethnic backgrounds that are represented, spanning the globe, and the ages of women anywhere from 20s into probably, and I'm guessing, right? And I'll probably get in trouble for this guess, but I think there were women probably in their 50s, that that they're looking to spend their last 10 or 15 years, of their career, in technology. And just kudos to you for solving problems and looking for important ways to help people that want to integrate into our industry, and of course helping employers find ways to create more diversity and inclusion in their organizations. Tech Moms has been super cool. So tell us a little bit about your background. Actually, one of your students is saying Tech Moms is an amazing program. Thank you for the vision of making it happen. Thanks, Trissa. So tell us a little bit about how you developed this passion for creating not only opportunities for women in tech, but creating opportunities for diverse population segments to be able to look for careers in this industry and help organizations, build out a more diverse team. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it comes from personal experience. I think anybody that has gone through really hard challenges develops even deeper passions and purpose. I do a lot of speaking on finding your purpose, finding your passion, finding your superpower, right? And I think that's what I had the fortunate opportunity to really identify as I went through my career. I would get frustrated, like, why am I being treated like this? Why am I not getting promoted? Why am I having this kind of aggressive approach to me, but not to my male colleagues? Like, what is going on here? And it made me start questioning, like, what is wrong with me at first? That's how I actually looked at it. And that's unfortunate, because I think a lot of people do that. They're like, what's wrong with me? What am I doing wrong? What am I need to do? And then after a lot of reading and research throughout the years, but, oh, this isn't me. I can let that go. There's issues in our society. We have these biases. We have challenges that are just there, and including myself. I do stuff all the time where I'm like, oh, I hate it when people do that to me and I did it to somebody else. And so just making it okay to go, we all have bias. It's okay. Right? Just, it's okay. We all do stuff. It just is what it is. But now what do we do about it? And you have to be intentional about it, because it is hard. You're fighting things you can't see, you can't touch, you can't put your finger on why that's happening, but it is happening. And it just shows up in our data. It shows up in our execution. It shows up in our employee engagement surveys. Because it is just so pervasive, you have to step back, and it goes beyond just that education piece to now how do we actually drive action. And that's really why I founded Rise Next, is the work I was doing for women, for our Black employees, for Latinx employees, for LGBTQ, for our disabilities, for parents in the workforce. It's not just one thing. And I think people think diversity, they think race immediately. Like, Trina, you're white. Are you running a DEI organization, right? Like, yeah, I am, because there's more to it in this space than just race. It is important, right? And we want to have all groups feel included. The key is that we're creating inclusive experiences where people feel like they can belong and bring their whole selves and drive innovation and have a voice, right? All of those things, it comes from a lot of different areas. And so it just comes from my own personal experience and frustrations and time that I just wanted to do something about it, and found I had this unique experience set with technology, business operations, strategy, and then also my time and experience in diversity and inclusion. So what really happened for me is when I moved in as global president of women in IT, I just was taken aback when I started working with at a broader level. There was no data, there were no systems, budget was limited. I was trying to get things organized. And I just went, we're not running this like a true business initiative. It's like people are just doing stuff. And then we wonder why it doesn't work. And so like, something's wrong here. We're not applying the same disciplines we would if this was a critical business initiative as we do within our DEI space. We kind of say, check the box. Yep, we put some people over here that are passionate, and we said, go, but we didn't enable them. We didn't give them the support that they need in order to truly be successful. And that's what I saw. And so some of the first things I did was I put in a whole organization at a financial officer, I had a data officer, I put in Tableau, I started putting communication systems in place, I started putting event management, website development, things that you need to truly be able to execute within DEI were just missing. And the teams that were working just did not know where to start and did not know how to actually run this in a way that drives change. And so that's where I recognized I had that unique talent set to be able to bring that together and really help organizations bring up or rise up to the next level, right, in their DEI execution.
Yeah, so cool. Well, I mean, I commend you for finding, your purpose, right? For finding something meaningful and impactful, and having the fortitude, the vision, to move forward and to make an important impact. I mean, you've done some really, really amazing things in your career, and you continue to do those now with a consulting company that revolves entirely around helping organizations not just check the box and say, hey, we're a diverse, inclusive organization, right? But to actually put some money and some strategy behind that, and do things that are real and impactful within the organization. So that's all been that's all really amazing. And one thing you mentioned that is very interesting, and I think most of us try to perhaps play these things down, but the reality is all of us have paradigms, all of us have programming that has been passed down sometimes for generations, that has been passed down through education, through family relationships, that have been passed down through religious organizations, whatever sort of societal influences that have been a part of our lives throughout our upbringing and our adult experience. We have this programming that gets passed along, and oftentimes it's not intentional. It's subconscious. And I know even myself, like there are times when I go, you know what, that isn't congruent with like who I profess to be, or, you know, the core values that I profess to have. And so I'm that average middle-aged white guy, right? And however, I've had experiences in life that I think have helped me be more empathetic towards those that come from, you know, diverse backgrounds. And that's something that has, for me, created a passion in trying to be impactful or influential in life and in industry, of creating more opportunity for diverse population segments. Now, I won't even pretend to put forth the work, you know, that you do in this, right? So just as some background, my own children, my three biological sons are Mexican American. Their mom is Mexican. My two stepchildren are Costa Rican American. My current wife is Costa Rican. And it's been interesting for me, as an American father, raising three Mexican American kids, to see, despite the fact that they were all born here in the U.S., their ethnicity has played a role in how they've been treated in the past, right? Same with my wife, my current wife, and my stepchildren. And for me, that's been very eye-opening. It's been very sad at moments to realize, just how inhumane sometimes society can be, and how much the blinders, can play a role. And so, but I'm grateful for those experiences as well, because it's made me far more compassionate and far more in tune, with these problems, and far more eager to help find solutions. So when I meet people like you, Trina, immediately I think I identify, and I'm very appreciative of the work that you're doing, day in and day out. So let's talk a little bit about here. We formulated a fun little kind of cookbook, for today's program, right? I guess, what was the title? Get Cooking on D&I Strategy.
And I hope everybody's hangry.
Right. So tell us, I know you wanted to talk a little bit about the ingredients. Tell us a little bit about that process there for you.
And I love that you shared your experience. So thank you for that. Because I think, sometimes individuals, if they have, they call it privilege. I don't know if I don't like saying that, because it kind of feels off to me, but not everybody's had an experience like you've had where you've felt that, but we've had experiences where we've felt excluded or maybe not listened to. So you can have still an appreciation, right? And so I appreciate you sharing that. And then also just, getting cooking, time to clean the kitchen. I don't know if anybody likes to cook in a dirty kitchen, but I don't. So, kind of level setting. I think the biggest thing I see within the DEI space is that first step of cleaning the kitchen and getting everybody on the same page. And I think that's really where education comes in. And it's not like a one-time training thing. It's not, let me do some unconscious bias training and woohoo, everybody gets it and life changes and we're all right. Like, there was $8 billion spent last year. I think annually we spend about $8 billion on DEI training. Yet, are we really seeing the results that we would expect from that? We're not. So I think that really understanding it is more than education. That's a good starting point. We actually, with Rise Next, we have what we call Rise Next Academy, which we're bringing in best in class DEI education experts and consultants to be able to help with that education piece, right? So that's the start. Kind of clean the kitchen, everybody aware, everybody understands what this is. The other thing I have to laugh about, and I don't know if maybe not laugh, but it's like, even for me, it's like, do I call it DEI, EDI, JEDI, DNI, right? Like, we have so many acronyms. I'm like, I don't even know what to call it anymore. I'm just going to say diversity experience. That's going to be my thing. We're going to create diverse experiences, and that's what we do. And so really trying to demystify. I talk about demystifying tech. I'm like, okay, let's demystify D&I now. But really kind of getting that first step there on creating awareness of what this is and why it's important. I think starting with the why, right? And why everybody should be involved. The other thing is, like, everybody's a chef. Everybody should be a DEI director. You don't hire one person and then expect change. Everybody has opportunity to create change, and you have to be intentional about it. When I started Tech Moms, we had to be very intentional. You mentioned the diversity within our Tech Moms groups. We were very intentional about how and where we sought out applicants. Working with the Utah Black Chamber, working with multicultural. We've reached out to Sua's organization. We tried to be very intentional on our channels so that we could reach all the communities, and making sure. And it's not easy. It does take work. It takes intention. But everybody can start thinking like that, right? Like, oh, have I thought more broadly? Have I included everybody? What more could I do? I think that's just kind of that first step of awareness for everyone. Yeah. And then you can start getting into the cooking and starting with the right ingredients. So I don't know so just real quick, because I have to say, Earl and I met on a D&I panel a year ago during the middle of COVID. And so he and I never met for like the last year. We've had like this long-term virtual friendship, which is really cool to go. I feel like I really know you, but I didn't meet you till like a week ago.
Yeah, right. Exactly. It's been a couple of weeks, but yeah, I mean, it's the first time we met in person.
And Earl would have these posts on social media of like all of his cooking and these incredible dishes he and his wife were making. And I'm like, those are amazing. So that's why I was like, okay, I'm going to do the whole analogy of cooking it up. That's where it came from, was all these amazing dishes Earl was cooking and showing. But I can tell you, none of your dishes had one ingredient in them. They looked amazing, just lots of flavor, just looked delightful. And I think that's the same thing as we approach diversity and bringing people in. It's kind of that same concept of, what are we really going to be able to cook here if we just have all the same ingredient? We have just one role or type of person. We're not bringing in diverse experiences or mindsets, or bring some spice into this thing, right? Like, where's that at? If you're not bringing that in, that's kind of limiting you on what you can cook. And so really getting the right ingredients, that's where that diversity perspective comes in. And then moving into, do you have the right recipe now for when they're there? I had a client I was working with, I was talking to somebody, and they said, we just focused on diversity to start. And guess what happened? They just hired a lot of diversity, but they didn't include them. They did not listen to them. They did not make sure they had the right skill sets. Like, you can't just focus on diversity alone. You have to have the right recipe for when you bring in the right diverse talent, that you're enabling them, you're empowering them, or you're listening to them, you're creating environments where they thrive. And so really looking at your recipe within your organization of how you're executing and driving change, and the people experience, that diversity experience, is really critical. You can't just do one or the other. You've got to have the right ingredients and the right recipes. And then the last part is, are you then, once you create these experiences, are you giving the right utensils and appliances to those teams? So I kind of mentioned this before, like when I came in, they said, great, Trina, you're global president of women in IT, go. And I'm like, I don't have any data. Like, what am I going towards? What do you mean just go, right? Like, I need to run sentiment surveys. I need to run assessments. I need to understand where we're at in the organization. What are the numbers of our women in IT? Or is it, and when I pulled the data, it was, technology is definitely a lot harder than our general, right? You're going to see the numbers. So then you can make decisions of where you're going to invest your time. Because if you don't provide those utensils or the right appliances to cook, you're not going anywhere. You're just going to have a pile of ingredients with the recipe and no way to actually deliver it. And so really having those systems and tools and reporting and communications and websites and all of these different capabilities that help drive awareness and change are really critical. And it takes all of that to cook effectively within this space, end to end. And so that's kind of my little DEI cooking it up analogy. I'm going to pause for a minute because I'm seeing comments, but I haven't been able to track them.
Yeah.
Or any thoughts?
Yeah, so just Skylar Robertson says he wants to introduce you to somebody, so you should connect with him definitely. Maximo Ventura, who's a buddy of mine. He's he's made a nice comment there. But anyways, just first of all, I love your cooking analogies. It's a lot of fun the way that you're drawing these parallels, right? But it's very very eye opening. And as a leader in an organization, I mean, I guess really the buck in the end, it falls to leadership, right? It is leadership's job to set the right culture, to mindfully look for opportunities to create diversity within an organization, but not just, as you mentioned, like you can hire diversity within an organization, but if you aren't actually listening to and enabling and helping those people grow, right, and helping them be a meaningful part of your organization and your culture, it really means nothing, right? And this isn't to toot our own horn in any way whatsoever. One of the things that I am very proud about, at Nexus IT is that while we are a small organization, about 40% of our team comes from diverse population backgrounds, diverse segments. I know you and I know the benefits of that, right? Mm-hmm. And I have to say that's been a journey. I mean, 15 years ago, we weren't, an organization that was that diverse, right? Mm-hmm. Today, we are mindful about it. We take, a meaningful approach. Now, we are always going to hire the most qualified, candidate, no matter, what population segment that candidate comes from. But if the most popular, the most qualified candidate happens to come from a diverse background, then most certainly we have a place for them here, right? Mm-hmm. And we work hard for it to be an integrated team. So let's talk a little bit about why does it matter? Why would business leaders want to work hard to try to create not only hire for diversity, but also enable that within your culture? What are some of your thoughts there, Trina?
Yeah, growth and profitability. I mean, that's the key. And a lot of people that are it kind of feels like, oh, you're pulling away from the people side if you talk growth and profitability, but your company is people, right? And when it comes down to it, you have products, you have systems, you have all this other, but it really is about the people. And if you don't hire right, you're going to have a lot of cultural trauma, things like that down the road. The other thing I would say is really looking at this before I kind of talk about the larger behavior or benefits, is that this can be done all the way from startup, which is ideal. If you are a startup, start thinking about this now because it is a competitive benefit. It isn't something you get down the road. I know a lot of companies will say, well, I'm just trying to get everything. I get it. I'm a founder. I know what it takes to try and get everything done. And you got limited budgets, things like that, but just being intentional in your hiring and building from the start is going to create a better culture, and longer term, you're not going to have to go back and retrofit, which is a lot of the companies I'm working with now are like, okay, now I'm looking around, everybody looks like me. What do I do? Right. And it's harder down the road than starting with it in the beginning. And you're going to have a lot more probably access to different innovation and ideas. So stepping back to what the benefits are, the research has been that all companies that focus and have diversity and inclusion at the forefront integrated into their business strategy are 35% higher profitability over their competitors. So just starting on the numbers, that's a good place to start. I don't know any business owner that wouldn't want to have 35% higher profitability, right? So 15 to 35, that's a good reason to start looking at this if you haven't yet, or investing more into it. The reason for that is that you have higher innovation. So when you're creating inclusive environments where everybody has a voice and you have varied life experiences that are coming to the table, you're going to get better creativity and higher innovation. So those things all drive those numbers, right? And knowing that it's not just a nice thing to do, this makes business sense and should be invested in. So really trying to create these environments where your part of what you do is hire for diversity. And then once you have them, we're now including and making sure we're listening to everyone, and we're promoting and we're developing and building our teams. And it's just going to drive more attraction to your company for better talent too. My own experience I'll speak to, as well as I've heard from others, that if you are a company that does not feel conducive as a woman or a minority community, you're probably not going to attract great talent.
Mm-hmm.
And so keeping in mind that when the CEO's responsibility is creating this culture that not only is taking care of your current employees, but as you grow, attracting great employees, and word gets out. There's been intentional decisions I have made in my career to work for large international companies because of the culture chain differences, and knowing I'd probably be a lot more accepted and listened to, unfortunately, I'll just be honest,
Sure.
than I would at a local company, right? And so I made decisions, and I'm a fabulous hire, by the way. Why, and a lot of companies missed out because I was not going to work for a company that wouldn't be more open in listening to me as an employee.
Yeah.
So it is a real thing, and people are thinking that way, and I think it's just being aware of that.
Yeah. No, such so many very good points there, and points of advice, and it's so true. Like, look, when I was a kid, and like your parents were telling you, you just take whatever job comes along, like whatever. I mean, my parents, came out of the Great Depression, right, as children, and so they knew scarcity, right, and if their mindset was, it doesn't matter what the job is. If you have a job offer, you take the job, right? And then you stay there. And you might work your way through it, right? You might work up, throughout your career or whatever. That isn't today's culture.
No.
We have mindful, intentional people who are looking to land in a place where they're appreciated, where they feel meaningful, and where they feel like they can have a meaningful impact. And if it's easy to perceive that your culture is not inclusive, right? Then 100%, you are not going to attract those people to your organization. And I have to just, back up some of your words here, Trina, in that having a diverse team creates a lot of new ideas. You can't bake a cake with flour alone, right?
Yeah.
Having diverse life experiences, having diverse backgrounds, coming from different countries, coming from different, gender segments or orientation segments, whatever it might be, right?
Mm-hmm.
All of those life experiences contribute to how we all, if you want to go to and I forget the book, but the beach ball analogy, right? Like, as I'm sitting on the beach ball, maybe I'm sitting on the blue section, and, the organization looks blue to me. But somebody that's sitting in, client service delivery or operations, they might be on the red section. And so it looks red to them, and our opinions may differ, but neither opinion is wrong, right? Because I'm just sitting on the blue section of it and they're on the red. And so when you get those more holistic viewpoints, from people, you're able to attack problems from a more holistic, approach.
Mm-hmm.
You're able to understand, and particularly, like, if you're working hard to try to create an extraordinary client experience, you need to understand that your clients come from diverse backgrounds, right? You need to be able to be relatable. And most definitely, having people that have had outside the box type of experiences in life generally lend to far more innovative approaches to things. And I'm not saying that, I'm not disparaging, like, again, you and I are middle-aged white people, right? Middle-aged Anglos, right? That I'm not disparaging us, and I'm not disparaging, our population segment, but I do think that, these are things that we have to keep in mind. And the reality is, as a leader, again, you have to be open enough and vulnerable enough with yourself to check in and say, am I allowing biases, even if they are, they're unconscious programmatic biases? Am I allowing those to creep in, right? Because I know, for example, I'm the son of baby boomers. Like, there were concepts, archaic concepts, and look, bless my parents' heart, right? There's nothing, that they did their best with the experiences they had in their life and their generation at that point. But there were concepts about females in the workplace. There were concepts about, about ethnicity, certainly about orientation, that were passed along, to me, to my siblings, as children. And it wasn't a malicious thing from my parents. It was just, that's the section of the beach ball that they were sitting on in that point in time, right? Again, those biases, you sometimes you have to check in with yourself, and you notice them cropping up. You notice, like, the way I'm viewing this situation right now isn't the way that I should really be viewing it, and the way that I profess. Like, if I'm trying to be an open-minded, abundance-minded person and leader, and I'm trying to be inclusive and provide, equality to everybody, all the stakeholders involved, right? Is my mentality, is my mindset around this thing correct? And if it's not, I know that's trickling down through the culture. So you gotta say, look, like, I'm wrong here, and I've got to get it fixed, right? And I've got to work on myself as a leader, so that I can set that tone and I can set that culture that will permeate and trickle down through the entire organization, right? And you have to, you have to set the bar. There are times, and there can be difficult conversations when you have to pull, a person or a few people aside, from time to time, and say, hey, look, this is who we are as an organization. We're inclusive. We love all of our teammates. We take care of them. We have their back. It doesn't matter where they came from. It doesn't matter what their experiences in life are. It doesn't matter how they differ from you or your box, right? We have each other's back 100% of the time. That's who we are. That's our culture. And you need to get on the bus, or you need to get off the bus if that's not, not going to resonate with you. So, so, Trina, this is this has been a fun conversation so far. What other advice do you have? And this is not an easy thing in any organization, right? Small or large, it's not easy. And I think you also have to strike the balance of not swinging too far in any one direction. I've seen organizations that have become discriminatory towards, the larger population segments because of a perceived disadvantage. And I get that. Like, I understand it, but I think that if you're going to be truly fair and equitable, again, to all stakeholders, you have to check yourself, right? You have to make sure that you're not being discriminatory to anybody in any way whatsoever. Anyways, just what other advice do you have, or comments do you have about how to institute these types of initiatives and programs within an organization?
Yeah, I think the first thing, I have two things I'd probably talk about. The first is creating an environment that's open, that you can't, because I won't always identify when I've done something wrong, right? And somebody needs to be able to feel comfortable enough to say, hey, I can come to Trina and say, look, that wasn't cool, right? You did something that bothered me, or here's my, and that's the key, is nobody's going to get it right out the gate, and making it okay just to have conversations is key. And kind of get past, I see a lot of hesitation for leaders. It's funny because every leadership development is get comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? Everybody's heard that, and if you haven't, learn it.
Mhm.
But when it comes to DEI, we have a hard time getting uncomfortable, right? So get uncomfortable. Go pick the community you are the least comfortable with and go get familiar with them. I think that's the biggest thing, is that we've got to get uncomfortable, and that's what's going to drive change. And just get comfortable with being uncomfortable in DEI, and pick where you're just like, I really have a hard time with this. Let me go try and understand and have a conversation. Just, kind of number one. The other one is then seek feedback. We've had great success in putting in forums, right? Of when you're driving innovation or change, or you're wanting to create mechanisms for not just downward communication, but upward communication. Employee engagement's a great start, but there's other ways to be able to go, hey, we're working on this new product. What ideas do you have? And leverage your diverse workforce at that point, because they might have other ideas. And so communication is just such a core part of this in creating openness, creating a comfortable environment for it, and then creating processes and mechanisms that allow for communication and being able to capture it. So we've worked on systems, like I said, the ones I've done or other companies that we worked with, that actually implement systems that allow for feedback, communication, events, and planning, and really just trying to bring people together and create diverse experiences again. It's about getting outside of what you've been in, or maybe where you're comfortable, and start having different experiences in new areas. We have put together what we call our experience solutions, which I really like. It's, instead of taking the education part, like we said, but then also layering in and creating not just events and celebrate, but create real opportunities for getting engaged and creating change. So like I said, we did employees' daughters. So then the parents get to think, oh, wait, my daughters are going to have to go through this experience. That's going to be tough. Oh, how do I work within my environment? How could I change things, right? It becomes more personal at that point. Also, working with an organization right now where they do Black teen mentorship programs. So in Utah, we don't have a lot of diversity. That doesn't mean there's not work here, but nationally, they work with executives and actually partnering them with teens in underserved communities and becoming mentors to be able to bring them up and coach them on business and entrepreneurship and getting involved that way. Like, there's a lot of ways to create experiences outside of the norm of what you normally have. And so just seeking for those diverse experiences, both within your company and outside of your company, and bringing that just to the forefront will create change on its own.
Very, very, very cool. So I have some follow-up questions, but one other idea that comes to mind that I think is really important, and this is that, if you're going to show your team that you have their back, particularly your team members that are part of a more diverse segment. And look, it needs to be equal across the board, no matter what, right? But I do think you can have a significant impact in setting the culture within your organization, and particularly in helping members of diverse populations understand that that they are an important part of your organization if you stand up for them when it's needed, right? Mm-hmm. And that may be a middle-aged white Anglo guy, right, that you need to stand up for on occasion, right? But if it's somebody that comes from a diverse background, so just out of example, and this is again not to toot our own horn, it's just to kind of illustrate the point here. So we've had experiences in the past where some of our engineers who go on site, and are not Anglo, we've had clients act differently towards them. In fact, we've had some that have been straight up, discriminated against, and we have fired, clients in those situations. or at minimum, we've had situations where it's been very noticeable. Even and this is the thing I love is like Anglo members of our team will say, "Hey, I'm noticing that XYZ client is treating me differently than they're treating these members of my team that are important to me and that come from a different background," right? And so we've had conversations with clients in the past where we say, look, this is our culture, right? This is who we are as individuals. We are inclusive, and we require the utmost respect of all of our people, no matter what their background might be or what their experience might be. And we are going to require you to treat our people the same way that you want to be treated. If that's not possible, then we need to sever, our relationship. And I'll tell you, those things make a huge impact within an organization.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When they wouldn't. I mean, you're sending out such a strong message there of what your expectations are, both internally as well as your clients everywhere. Supplier diversity. Are you looking at diverse suppliers? Like, there's so many avenues where this can be applied. And it's just, once you get in, I think once you work within a diverse environment, it's really hard to not work in one. It's hard to go back, right? And so you just become more and more aware. You just start taking those first steps like you're doing, and it becomes visible elsewhere in your life. You see it everywhere.
Yeah.
You just become more aware all the time.
Variety is the spice of life, right? I mean, like, I love hanging around with people. I love having friends that that are unconventional, that aren't the same as me or aren't the same as anybody else. I really enjoy very unique, genuine type of people, right? And when you work in that kind of space, and you appreciate the perspectives and the backgrounds that everybody's bringing based upon their life experiences, it's just, I don't know. I think it's a very warm, welcoming, inviting place to be, a beautiful place to be.
Absolutely.
So we have a few more minutes. Let's kind of wind down the chat here. I know you mentioned a few technological applications, of how, strategies you can implement to help with your DEI initiatives within an organization. Let's just kind of review that and maybe dig deeper. What are some of the platforms, the solutions that you recommend to help, companies, again, mindfully execute on DEI initiative?
Yeah, when we're working with companies, there's 4 areas I look at. First is strategy. Just like you would your business strategy, you can't write a strategy on a piece of paper and never share it with anybody. So systems that really help you drive what your initiatives are, create visibility throughout the organization. We often use existing systems. So if you've got Workfront or any of those that do strategy, planning, execution, CA, right? We can take existing systems that help with just that planning perspective and putting together what are the strategies we want to do, because you can't do everything. It's an ongoing set of work, just like any other business growth. You got to start from the beginning. So strategy systems are a start. Also, data systems are really important. You have your HR systems, right? Getting access to data. And every company might have a different HR system that you're working with there, but access to that, as well as a surveying tool of some kind. You need to be able to survey your employees, survey your communities, survey your clients. There's culture assessments, there's feedback loops on your events, things, how they're going. You need to have that surveying component in there so that you can track the data there. And then a communications platform. I think we've got one of our companies that we've been looking at partnering with, diverse.com, on the line. They do employee resource group platforms, and have been working with them on really being able to be a lot more effective in driving change through your employee resource groups, because they're a huge resource that are not typically leveraged. So they run events, they are providing information back to executive teams. They are a great forum, and you need systems and tools to be able to effectively run those teams and making sure that you're getting the most out of those. The reporting side of this, I'll just share, there was a company that we were working with that ran some of these. They were tracking the participation at their events, how often people came, how engaged they were, and then tying that back to seeing lifts in their employee engagement score, which is, again, really showing that you're driving culture change. People like being there, right? You can tie those things in and show the correlation between those. So really looking at your full tech stack from a DEI execution is important to making sure your teams can then have the data, drive change, and then strategize, execute again, and repeat.
Very, 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 very cool. Really great. I like the four points and categories there, and I like the mindful approach. So we've got just a couple more minutes here. Maybe just a few parting thoughts, Trina. What are some lessons you've learned while you've been working for 25 years and creating more diverse teams that you feel are valuable you'd like to share?
It's not a quick win, right? It's not going to be immediate. I think understanding that this is a long-term. If I don't understand a perspective or somebody has an alternate perspective, lean in. I know we probably have some of those. And try and understand. I'm open as much to anybody else and their views as I would ask them to be for me. And it's not easy work. It's time-consuming work. It takes intention, but it's worthwhile, and you will see the benefits from it. So I would just say, everybody just start from where you're at. Just try and gain as much knowledge and education as you can, and we're here to help get to work.
Yeah. So cool, Trina. This has been a fantastic hour. I really, really appreciate you sharing, your vision, your passion, your love for making sure that that we create spice in life and in tech and in industry. I appreciate the fact that you really have kind of made this your life mission, and so much so that you've built a nonprofit organization as well as a company around these topics. I applaud you. Few people ever really get to that, including myself, ever really get to a point in life where you're able to build meaningful organizations around an impactful passion, right? Mm-hmm. And so I feel privileged to know you. I feel privileged to call you a friend. I'm so glad that your influence is here in our community, and that you're doing important things. And I wish you and your teams the best, moving forward. So let's tell the viewers how they can reach out to you if they want to get more information about what you're doing, or if any organizations want help on devising their DEI strategies and their execution strategies.
Absolutely. So risenext.com is our site. The email info@risenext.com will get you to us, and we can start working with you on helping you get through, get some plans put together, and organizing it. So we love this work. We love working with all of our clients, all of our companies. It's such rewarding work when you just even see the small wins. So looking forward to working with everyone.
So cool. Well, we want to thank all of our guests today. It's been a wonderful hour. We hope you've all enjoyed. I know I've enjoyed. Trina, again, thank you for your time. We wish you all a fantastic, wonderful day, and we're going to sign off.
Great. Thanks so much, Earl.
Yeah. See you all.